Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, UK's premier business show where we feature business thought leaders, high achievers, and industry experts. Today's episode is brought to you by World Outsourcing Solutions Limited, a company that specializes in helping executive business owners with virtual assistant services and business growth systems. Here's your host.
Hello everyone and welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Trevor Stockwell, and with me on this episode is Mike Murphy. Now, Mike has over 15 years of experience within the film industry. You've probably seen a fair bit of his stuff, but I'll let him explain a little bit more about that in a moment. Mike started mentoring filmmakers, young filmmakers, which then led him to the formation of starting an animation training academy. Now he helps entrepreneurs and business owners kickstart or expand their brand for maximum impact. It's going to be a great conversation. He's going to share some of the steps that you need to think about to really make the most of your business. Thanks for joining us. Welcome, Mike Murphy.
Hey, Trevor. Nice to be here.
Thanks for taking the time to share what I know is going to be a really good conversation with us. Just some of your insights, things you've learned, and also how it is you do help people maximize their brand.
Okay, cool. Bring it on.
Stuff. Maybe it sort of alluded to it in the intro a little bit. Just a little bit of your background with regards to being in films and
the movies.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
a little bit about that just to get us going.
Okay, super. Well, when I was, I'll give you the short version of a very long story. But when I must have been 15 years old, I was just obsessed with just storytelling and films and special effects and just writing and when I was in high school, I was obsessed with like figuring out how movies were made and writing scripts and stuff. And I ended up like all my teachers like, we don't know anything about any of the, and this is before the internet and before you could like just get a class on Udemy for $20. So there's not a lot of info on how to make films. And so like in English class, I would be like writing scripts and the teacher's like, what do I do with you? Like I was just the weird kid that people were like, okay, just humor Mike. So when I was 15, we had a wedding at my house. And I had some really awful, just god awful high school art that my mom lovingly framed on the wall. It was cringeworthy, but my mom was like very proud of it. And so one of the guests at the wedding, she saw this animation cell because one time I was down in LA and I found an art store where you could actually buy this is like really old school. You could buy celluloid that they would paint before computer animation. They would paint on cells. So I got some cells and I did it was like Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn. I was obsessed with that story. So I did that and it was on the wall. And this person at the wedding was like, hey, do you by any chance want to be an animator? And I didn't really want to be a filmmaker, but I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? You know, it's like the end of Ghostbusters. And like, are you a god? And, you know, he's like, he should have said yes. He said no. So I learned to say yes to people. So I said, yeah, I'd love to. And she said, well, check it out. My brother, he's one of the top artists at Disney Animation. And they're making a little movie called Aladdin. And if you ever want to, like, if you're ever in LA and you want to get lunch with him, I was like, yes, please. So literally the next week my mom was driving me down to LA. It was like a 7-hour drive from Northern California down to Southern California. And I had lunch with this fellow. His name was Alex. And I was supposed to have like a 60-minute lunch. And I ended up being there for 2 days.
Wow.
And, you know, I'm like a 15-year-old kid and I'm at the studio and I'm watching all these really talented artists make this movie. And it dawned on me like, wow, like this is like people make this. I had this naive thought that like Steven Spielberg made the movie or Walt Disney made the movie. Like it's one guy doing all this work. And I realized, wow, it's actually a team of people. Yeah. And that and on that film, ironically, I remember walking down the hall and this guy's like, hey, check this out. And it was the tiger head, you know, the Cave of Wonders, and it comes out of the sand. And that was one of the first CG characters that was ever done. And I ended up having a pretty awesome career in computer animation. So it was interesting. Like, I never really thought about this conversation. Like, wow, I was actually there in the very beginning, like seeing this new art form blossom. So I asked Alex, I said, what do I have to do to work here? And he's like, well, there's this school called Cal Arts up in Northern California. It was one of the last projects that Walt Disney did before he passed away. So I said, I'm going to go there, just a stupid 16-year-old or 15-year-old kid. Like, I'm going to go there, no big deal. And I called the school like the next day, and they're like, I'm sorry, next year we're full. We've already accepted everyone. I'm like, you don't understand. I'm going there. And they're like, okay, sure, kid. So I that weekend, it was like Thanksgiving weekend in America, and I just sat and I drew my entire family was into football. I'm an artist, so I'm like, I didn't care, but I was watching the football game and just drawing the gesture drawings. And then I sent it in that following Monday to Cal Arts, and like a week later, I got a little tiny envelope back. And I'm like, oh, my mom's like, it's okay, honey, maybe next year. And I opened it up. I was like, dear Mr. Murphy. It's like, you're in. I'm like, all right. So I'm like 16 at this time, and I get accepted to this art school that has like, I think 1 out of 10,000 students got accepted. So it was super rare. Yeah. I think it was just a fluke. They sent me the wrong letter. But I got in, and now I had a bigger problem because I had to drop out of high school, which my father wasn't too keen on. But long story short, I went to that school and I graduated. And upon graduating, because I got a job at Warner Brothers in the animation unit. I've got condensing a story here, but basically I got a job offer from Disney, and I had to turn it down because they wanted me to do hand-drawn animation. And when like the last week of Cal Arts, Toy Story, they screened it for us. They previewed it early, and I was like, that's the future. It's computer animation. Yeah. And all my buddies are like, you're an idiot. That'll never happen. Like, it's just, like you're crazy. And, but I really knew that CG, computer animation was the future. So I turned down this job at Disney. Granted, it would have been kind of entry level, but it still was my dream to work there. Yeah. And I had to kind of go and finagle to get a studio that was doing computer animation to train me, and I actually got one, and that got me into the industry. So when I was 21, I was working in the industry, and now I was making more as an animator than my dad, who was a vice president of a big corporation. So he's like, all right, like, he finally got his approval. It's like, all right. You made it happen, son. So long story short, I worked on a lot of classic films, and I worked on a lot of really awful films. So I'll forego mentioning the awful films, but the movies that I worked on that people really love is Ironman. I worked on Fast and Furious. I worked on Harry Potter. And the one that is probably going to be on my gravestone is Lord of the Rings. Everyone loves that. And I was one of the main Gollum animators of that movie. And when we won the Oscar for the Two Towers and Return of the King, they showed some of my clips. So it was cool to be like, nice. Oh, right. I mean, it was a really like if I didn't work on that movie and other people had they'd hire a different animator than me, the movie would have been just as great, because there was like 2,000 people working on the movie. But it was really awesome just to be part of that, and it was such a cultural phenomenon. Yeah. And the weirdest story, I don't know how adult your audience or how young your audience is, but right when the movie premiered, I went to my hometown, and my friend Hal was like, we were at a bar, and he's like, hey, this guy works on Gollum, right? And boom, like I was the most popular guy. And then this one dude, this like big guy, he's like, hey man, check it out. He rips his shirt off, and he's got this like he's all tatted, like 100% Lord of the Rings, and he's got Gollum on it. Wow. and he's like, and he had this girlfriend. He's like, I'd be honored if you just like make out with my girlfriend. I'm like, no, dude, I'm going. So that was like crossing the line. It was so yeah. When you work on a movie like that, like people really love it, and they go absolutely insane. Not most of them not as insane as that guy, but that's actually the second guy with the tattoo of a character that I worked on. The other one was Iron Giant, and this guy pulled his pants down and his entire leg was the giant tattoo. And it's like, wow. It's weird to, you're like, okay, nice.
Yeah, that's commitment, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, I've got a, so those are the movies that I worked on that people really enjoyed. And near the end of my career, because I was doing that for 15 years. And near the end of it, I was in a division of special effects that is known as pre-visualization. So it's almost like a video game cinematic where you see everything's digital, and we would have kind of mock-ups of the actors and stuff. And the whole point of that is we would do, they're like moving storyboards so that the crew could figure out, like the producer could figure out how much shots are going to cost, right? If we have a giant robot running around and spaceships and stuff, like how much is that going to cost us, and how long is it going to take to make that shot happen? Or like in case of Fast and Furious, we needed to work out the stunts so that nobody was hurt on set. And the problem with that industry is I was constantly in the end of production, where it's like, hey, the movie comes out next week, right? So you're like literally it's 3 a.m. on Sunday and you're working. And after about 2 years of that, I was like, I don't think this is sustainable. So I had to figure out another way to just to survive. And I would kind of like I'd been doing filmmaking, and I was kind of ready for something more. And during that time, I'd been a university professor teaching filmmaking and animation. And I got this crazy idea. I'm going to just travel the world and do a couple seminars and stuff. So I literally traveled the world and taught or lectured at some of the biggest animation schools internationally. And that led to a school asking me to come down to Southeast Asia and create basically live there and teach for them. And I was like, I can't do it. I live in America, which is ironic because I don't live in America anymore. So at that point, I had to figure out a way to automate my expertise and be able to help students, but not like have to physically be there, and also not have to to keep repeating myself. So that led to me creating an online animation training. And back then, this was like pre-Zoom. Was like, I remember being on Skype and it was just like awful connections. It just wasn't there yet. This was like back in 2000, I want to say 15, which doesn't sound that long ago, but technologically it was pretty long ago.
Yeah.
So I formed a company. I went from like being an artist in these big studio films and then also like directing commercials and animation and stuff, to now having to figure out how the hell do you become an entrepreneur, which was the exact opposite of being an artist. But because one of my early, I don't want to say mentor because I never met the guy, but early influences was Walt Disney, who as a kid, I thought, like I mentioned, I thought Walt did everything. Like, oh, yeah, clearly Walt just sits there and makes a movie. And it's Walt was actually the visionary behind his studio, and he would like acquire a property and then hand it over to the staff, and they would go and make it. He would put his blessing on it, but it was more of a high level process because he was really mastering the art of business. So when I got my head around that, because before that people were like, Mike, you're an entrepreneur, and I'd be like wanting to punch him, like, don't you call me that, I didn't really I thought entrepreneur was like a bad word, right? It's like, what is that weird French word? I didn't really understand that entrepreneur is a highly creative person who has to figure out, how do I take my ideas and actually make them? And making an idea means you need money, right? So it comes down to the art of business, which is something that guys like Walt Disney were really great at, and Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and all these people that I grew up watching their films and just being really inspired by. Ultimately, those people, in addition to mastering their art, their craft, they're also masters of business, which was like, so when that light bulb went off in my mind, I was like, oh, wow, this makes sense to me. And then I embraced being an entrepreneur somewhat naively, because like, man, entrepreneurs, we're nuts.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I think a lot of people couldn't sort of relate just listening to that. Not so much to the animation side. Most of us haven't had the journey that you have, but just the journey of entrepreneurship, becoming and thinking about starting businesses, and just some of the struggles that you have to think about. In some ways, it's sad, isn't it, that the talent, the gift that you have that you want to share with the world, in a sense, gets stifled if the business element isn't in place. Whether you learn it and do it yourself, whether you bring a team or outside consultants, people in, the two things go hand in hand, don't they? You have to be able to somehow manage the money and the business side of it, get your message out there in a way that makes sense to people, as well as actually have the talent, the gift of something that makes you unique to share with somebody else. And I think, that's, people can be really good at one element or really good at the other, but it's like, how do I get both to the point where I can still do what I want to do, the bit that I'm passionate about, but sort of the fundamentals, the rudiments still happen, so that business still happens. You can make money, pay the bills, and do whatever else you want to do with the income that you generate. Which is really one of the reasons why you started the Visionary Planner, isn't it? The process that you've went through yourself, you lived it, tweaked it, found out what worked first, and then you're now sort of in the position where you've been taking clients through the whole process of thinking through, what is it that I need? Okay, how's that going to work? How can I be my authentic self, bring my brand, if you like, who I am, but also think through the business aspect as well. So it's a big question to ask in the short time that we have, and we will only touch the surface. But just get us curious about how did you start that process, and what does the initial stages of that process look like that got you to the point where you've now got the whole picture, the whole sort of business plan, the process, and then you're able to help your clients go through it.
Good question. Okay, so let's people listening are probably like, what the heck's the Visionary Planner? So as I got my animation training online, I invested in a mastermind. So it was a really expensive business mastermind. And that was another one where my dad's like, you idiot, what are you doing? Like, trust me, I've got a plan. So I joined this really expensive mastermind, and based off the success that I'd had with my animation training, all these entrepreneurs like, can you help us out? Like, just what are you doing? Like what's the process? And I started really realizing that nobody had, and even to this day, except for the Visionary Planner, which is what is a process that I've developed in the company, consulting company I have. Nobody was laying out, start here and then do this and then do this and then this connects with this and this is the software you need that's going to play nice with this, right? So it took me a decade, and I work with hundreds of clients at this point, of really working out how do you take your idea and your passion and actually build a personal brand around that, selling your expertise. So if you're doing like e-com or like an in-person sort of service, like if you're a plumber, then it's not really going to work for you. But if you're like me and I was selling my animation mentoring, or now I'm selling business coaching, right? So if you're selling information, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry at this point, especially with the way the internet's working now. A couple pre-COVID, like people are like, I don't know, online business, it sounds right, but now it's like, yeah, I need that. Yeah. So the Visionary Planner is essentially the steps that I took to get to like zero to now I've built a 7-figure company, and it's all very for lack of a better term, it's very anal because when I was directing and supervising in Hollywood, like if you don't have simple, clear action steps, your crew is just going to sit around burning money. So you have to be very clear, like you're going to do this so that we have this asset, and then that asset's going to plug into this thing. So I had to look at everything from a 30,000 foot view and piece all this stuff together so that if you're the entrepreneur and you're wanting to learn the art of business, and most of the time you're a solopreneur, unless you get like some VC money, which isn't easy, not the easiest thing in the world. Most of the time you're going to have to just grind away and do it on your own, and you don't know what you don't know. So I suffered from this when I was first starting out. Like I spent like 1 year because I asked my students, like, what do you guys, or I asked before they were students, like, what do you guys want? Like, we'd love a forum where we can talk about animation. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. So I spent a whole year hiring programmers and managing the forum. And finally I was like so technically overwhelming, and it got me no sales, right? It was like the right thing, but at the wrong time. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't know to pull the plug. I'm like, let's focus on getting more immediate sales. So if you're just starting out, or even a lot of our clients have been in the game a long time, and they're also like, we're not getting the success that we deserve, and they're not sure what's going on. So, and what I realize is it's like a foundation. I've got an 8-step process, and it's divided into 2 phases. So the first phase is the kickstart phase, and that's literally can be somebody that just has an idea, like, I think I want to do business coaching, or I want to do yoga classes online, or whatever it is. And then when you get like a handful of sales, and this is for a higher ticket product. So if you're like, I want to start my own business and sell a $20 recipe book or a $100 course or whatever, it's like, have fun with that. You're going to spend more on ads to bring people in, or sweat equity to just get people to know about your brand, than you will actually monetizing. So there's a lot of business sense that has to happen, and that's all baked into the planner. But essentially the kickstart phase, you graduate by having sold a handful of higher ticket coaching programs. So that's typically $2,500 or up. And then once you get a handful of buyers, and because they're paying you a lot of money, you have the time to really focus on them, rather than going, oh my gosh, I got my $20 ebook, I need to sell 1 million of them to break even, right? Now you're like, I sold 10 people, $2,500, I made 25 grand. And it's just me, I'm a solopreneur. I can coast for 6 months at that price and really get those clients. I call them guests because I'm an ex-Disney guy. So I can get my guests an amazing experience and get amazing case studies out of that then I can go back and go to the expand phase of growing my business. Now I've got all the marketing collateral, so the product starts selling itself, the brand starts selling itself. So and in that, you also have to create content. You have to do content marketing. You have to understand sales. You have to understand the technical aspects of things. And your biggest enemy is time. There's only so many hours in the day. So if you do one thing wrong, you've literally wasted hundreds of hours and you can't get your time back. So that's why it's a very defined process that people have to go to.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. So the first four steps are sort of sequential.
Yeah, you can't go out of order. I've had people try. I also have VIP coaching where people I like Visionary Planner, like your process, but I want to I want to do my own thing. I'm like, okay. And we always end up doing the same steps because that's just what you need. So the first step is something that most people, not a lot of business coaches teach this, and most people just don't do this because they're so chomping at the bit to get sales, and they skip over this. And that's to get really clear on who you are. What is your vision? And then what's that basic business plan, right? So we don't need like an 80-page business plan, but let's start with your vision. So if your vision is that you want to serve a particular niche and a particular type of guest, and you have a good understanding of what makes them tick, and then, so that's the first component. The second component is what do you want to get out of that, right? Because as you know, as a business coach, running a business is a lot of work. It's like I got 2 little kids, and man, there's like snotty noses and diapers, and you got to put them in bed. It's like you're always on. My wife and I, we just get like a friggin' hour off, and you don't get it. And a business is the same way, right? You're getting client emails, and there's all these things going on. So if you're going to commit to doing a business, it's like having a child. It's in your life forever, and you can't take a break from it. So if you're going to make that big commitment like that, and it's also financially risky, you can lose your shirt if you do it wrong. So you have to go into that business from the very beginning saying, what do I want to get out of this? We want to back engineer, what's that vision? I call it like your dream day. What's the dream day that you want to live? And then how much is that going to cost? So let's say to live my dream day every day is going to be 10 grand a month. I always use 10 grand as kind of a base. Yeah. So if I have to bring 10 grand in to just pay for my overhead and live the life I want to live and send my kids to daycare, car, pay for the car, all that fun stuff, it's 10K. And then I know, like, based off doing analysis, my competitors are all charging $2,500 for a 2-month coaching program. Okay, so if I do a better version of that and I get some great case studies, so I have proof that it works, then I have to get at $2,500 to get 10K, I have to get 4 sales a month. Okay, typical sales process is about a 20% close rate over the phone. So if I get 20 calls a month, I close 20%. I've made, I suck at math and arts, but that's like 4 to 5 sales a month. I've hit my numbers. So like, once you can think about it that way, like, what do I want to get out of my life and how much do I have to sell to do that? Yeah. It becomes really achievable. Like, who can't get through just social selling? Who can't get 20 people to be interested and have a quick call with you and then close 4 of them? It's really easy when you've got a proven process and when you've got some proof that your process works and you've built some trust up with people. So that's the first step that people definitely need to do. And again, most people skip over that because it's not sexy. They're like, no, I just want to make my product and sell it. It's like, whoa, that's not, because I work with too many people that have, and I've been guilty of this. You make a business that traps you, and then it's literally like 3 a.m. on a Sunday, and you're like, why am I working? Why am I like up right now doing this when I should be sleeping and enjoying my life? So we definitely want to plan your business to serve you, and everything else falls into place once you've done that.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of reasons why people become entrepreneurs, isn't it? There's a passion, there's a drive, but there's the desire for freedom and a lot more flexibility in lots of ways as well.
And the irony is they end up making they're like, why do I just go back to my old job? I work 40 hours a week. Now I'm working 80. Like, this is insanity. So that's what happens when you don't.
I can have a holiday. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I like what you said as well about take the time to figure out who you are. It's easy, as you say, to rush in and try and get sales and pay the bills and start the whole momentum of the business and get it going. But until you really tap into who you are, you can't properly serve the people that you want to serve.
Yeah.
Yes, there's growth. Yes, you discover more about yourself in the process. You don't have to have everything figured out and be perfect before you start. But you do need to be unique. Even if you're offering a service that is saturated in the market, if you're unique, you'll still reach certain people, won't you?
Yeah.
I think that's the key thing. Otherwise, you end up chasing what you see working somewhere else, and you try and make that fit, and it's like, nah, that's not
never works.
So yeah.
Or the worst is you get clients who don't value you, and because you need money, you undercut your pricing, and then you always get crap clients that demand way more.
Yeah.
So if you're not really clear on who you want to serve and what your values are, and that all happens in that first step, then you will end up attracting like time sucky or just bad clients who who you're like, oh my gosh, like they're calling me. You want to run instead of going, oh hey, what's up? I want to help you today. So it's really important to do that. And another thing we didn't really talk about, but you kind of touched upon it, is that everybody's online now, right? So you are a commodity, or your niche is a commodity, right? Every niche you're going to go into, there's all the competition, unless it's something wacky, like I'm going to teach people how to sew sweaters for their pet squirrel. It's like, okay, maybe you're probably the only person doing that, but like a lucrative niche like business coaching or social media management or online fitness, you throw a rock and you'll hit like 10 people that are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So what I really want people to think about is what makes you unique. What do you bring in different to the table? There's only one you. And like with business coaching, what I'm teaching is not revolutionary in any way. It's just best practices. And a lot of other people, they don't teach as complete as I have, but they teach pieces of it. And there's so much like opportunity in the market. I don't have a scarcity mindset at all, because someone might go, wow, I really resonate with Mike. I get it, and the next coach, they're like, I don't get that. I'm not vibing with the person, and vice versa. So you're going to attract the people when you tap into your values and you tap into who you really want to serve and why you want to serve them. You're going to just naturally bring those people in through just karma and energy, right? And the people who aren't right for you, they're going to go to the other coach that's a better fit. So really, like just being authentic to who you are and not trying to like pretend to be something different or comply with what you think the market wants, but saying, this is who I am. That's what works these days.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose the biggest challenge to that is that can be scary. It's almost like it's easier to look at somebody else and think, okay, that's what they're doing, I'll be like that, because then you don't need to reveal who you are. But actually people are interested in who you are.
Yes,
as the individual, because you are different, and you're different for a reason, because you're going to help different people in different ways.
And there's only one you, right? And if you're not authentic to who you are, and you're trying, like in my niche, the cliched business coach is nowadays it's some 28-year-old fitness model with his shirt off, and he's on top of his Lamborghini, like, look at how money's not important to me, but look at my car, my private jet. And it's like, dude, you rented those, right? And that's what people think. They have to be that, or they have to be, whoever, like if I'm doing personal development, I got to be like Tony Robbins, right? No, be you. Because people can go, if they want Tony Robbins, they'll go to Tony Robbins. If they want, if you're authentic and you share your message and you're truthful with people, they're gonna want you if they're attracted to that. So so trying to be, I guess if I could sum it up, when you're inauthentic, you create an inauthentic business that you hate. Becomes a trap.
Because it's I could talk to you for hours. We're very close to the end of this episode, but it's like we need self-expression, don't we, above everything else? And if we're therefore in a business that isn't authentic, we're never getting to that point of expressing who we really are. So we're always going to live frustrated, or it's just not going to work as it should. You're not going to help people.
The energy's off.
What you want.
And a lot of things as an entrepreneur is 99% of us, there's maybe one exception, some kid that made a lemonade stand when they were 12 and they blew it up. It's the biggest lemonade business in the world. But the average entrepreneur started working for other people. They worked for a corporation, or they work for their parents or whatever. And they went off to create their own business because that other thing wasn't fulfilling to them. They didn't feel like they were really, like their voice was heard and they were shining as bright as they can. So if that's you and you're feeling like I want to start my own business because I'm not feeling appreciated at work, or I've got this big dream to change the world, and you're not doing it because you're working for the man, then by all means embrace who you are and put yourself out there and have faith. You're not going to get it right the first time, but have faith that you're going to really get that rolling. And like we were talking before about this podcast, it's been through consistency that this is now a top podcast, right? So you can't just be like, oh, I put my first podcast episode out there and my mom listened to it and nobody else, I'm going to give up. No, like, that's great. Your mom likes it. Keep going. Make. So consistency and just believing in yourself and being authentic to yourself, I think, is the biggest thing. That's why like people like Steve Jobs and Walt Disney and Steven Spielberg, George Lucas and J.K. Rowling, all these like really talented visionary people, they've built really awesome brands and companies because they were true to themselves, and people resonated with that. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we need more people to find who we are. We're all on the journey, as I say, and that's the exciting part, isn't it? If we did know who we were completely, where would we go? How could we grow from there? So
we'd be on a mountain in Nepal meditating, and
absolutely.
I figured it out. Cool.
That's really good. You've got a team of people that help you, haven't you, with regards to taking your clients through the whole 8-step process. And that is for people listening, because we've only touched the surface and they want to find out more, there'll be a link to your website wherever people are listening to this. Just click the link below. You can go through to Mike's website. Is that the next first step for people? If they want to find out more, just touch base with you there.
So I have 2 websites. The main one is my personal brand site, mikelmurphy.com. So you can go check that out. We actually just won an award. I hired a really amazing Yeukai designer, Joseph. Joseph's super talented, and he built this award. Like we literally just won like top website of the year from a Webflow.
I'm not surprised. Yeah, it takes you on a journey, doesn't it? It's not just scrolling down. You go across and then you go down a bit, and it's
super badass. And I give Joseph all the credit for that. I wish I could say it's all me, but it's Joseph's really great. So that's my main site, and then in that there's links out to my other stuff. So one of them is my animation training, which we're going to be launching next year because I've been so busy the last few years with Visionary Planner. But there's also a link to the Visionary Planner. So you can conversely just go to visionaryplanner.com if you want to go straight to that and skip my personal site. But that's basically how you get a hold of me.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds
good. Stuff that they can sign up for, and there's an 8-step blueprint. So we didn't really have much time to talk about that, but if anyone listening wants to figure out or discover what those 8 steps are, just go to either of my sites and it'll rabbit hole you over to signing up for it.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that sounds really good. Thank you for what you shared today. It's interesting just from the journey you've been on as well, but also it's very practical. And some people are wired to follow step by step processes. Other people struggle at that, but you've put it all together in a place. You've got a team around you that can help them through the bits that they're not so good at, so they can really focus on what they're good at, helping them, help their audience as well.
It's a cure for being a solopreneur, trying to figure it out all on your own.
Yeah. Life goes by, doesn't it? And
you got to make every minute count. Time is money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good. Thank you for what you shared. There's lots that people are listening can take away and put into practice, depending where they are on their journey. But I think wherever we are, revisiting that: am I really who I am? Am I expressing who I want to be, and how I can help people? I think that's key. I think we should do that annually at least, just daily. To make sure we stay,
daily meditation,
stay sharp and stuff.
Again,
Yeah, no, it's really good. So yeah, thanks for your time. It'd be great at some point if you could come back. I know you've got some big projects ahead, which I'd love to chat to you about at some point.
I'm around. Just send me another Calendly link.
Okay, no, that sounds good.
Talk to you guys again.
Yeah, because theme parks and different things like that were involved, weren't they? So yes, but that's
down the road.
Another episode, absolutely. Yes. No, but yeah, thanks, Mike, for joining us today, and for everybody listening as well. Take on board what Mike shared. There is a process, there is a way that you can leverage the skills, the benefits of other people. They can help you maximize your time and effort. Find out, take a step to explore, find out how Mike's team can help, and then you can make an informed decision from there. But remember to stay true to who you are, because at the end of the day, that's the best person you can be. And you're allowed to be who you are. You really are. We believe that you have value. Even if we've not met directly yet, we believe you have value. You have something to offer the world, something to help other people to make their life better. And you can make a good business from it as well, depending what your focus is. So definitely take action. We always encourage people to take action. Otherwise, you stay where you are.
Yeah. You only live once and your dreams don't happen unless you make them happen.
Absolutely. Some wise words there. We leave you with that. So thanks for joining us. We will catch you next time.
Thank you for listening to Yeukai Business Show. We will be back to bring you more episodes with success stories and advice straight from the experts. Want more? Check out www.yukaibusinessshow.com. Get your free trial of our virtual assistant service today. Just visit www.worldoutsourcingsolutions.com. Quote WOS18 or send us an email at support@worldoutsourcingsolutions.com.